Well, it's a beautiful morning in sunny Southern California. According to the so-called world's largest thermometer, it's 91 degrees out. According to our F-150, it's 92. Same difference. And we're heading up from Baker, California, where we just took a pit stop, to Las Vegas to drop off a small trailer load of freight. We left out from Carlsbad, Oceanside area this morning. It was 59 degrees with that fog rolling in off the ocean. You drive about 2 hours north through, you could take I-15, which we usually take. This morning, the directions had us go up I-5 through about the southern half of Orange County and then onto a bunch of toll roads and then connecting to I-15 in the Riverside area. And then past Ontario, Rancho Cucamonga, up through the San Bernardino National Forest, a very steep, maybe 10 or 15 mile stretch of uphill. And then you get to what's called the high desert. And that begins in officially when you get to the, I think they call it Cajon Summit, which is the end of that long uphill stretch. And then you're in Hesperia, Victorville, Apple Valley, and then through Barstow, and then Yermo, where they have that big Marine Corps logistics base, which we've spent quite some time at back in the day. And Fort Irwin with the National Training Center, where we also spent quite a bit of time many years ago. And then you pass through about an hour of empty desert, and then you get to Baker, which is just a couple of gas stations basically, and as stated, the so-called world's largest thermometer. And then when you go north from Baker, which is what we're doing right now, you go uphill through what can be a pretty steep uphill grade. I think it hits 7% at various points. And it's about 17 miles uphill. And so we wanted to show you how this truck does on, a reasonably hot day at high altitude going uphill, towing about a 4,000 pound trailer. We hit the scales yesterday after we loaded up, and I think the total weight of the truck and trailer was around 11,000 pounds. Maybe 11,100 pounds. With the truck being, I guess it was a 4,200 pound trailer. So the truck was around, 6,900 pounds, just under 7,000. The trailer, including the tongue weight, obviously. And the trailer was another 4,200 without the tongue weight. So with the tongue weight, it's a decent amount. It's probably 500 or 800 pounds of tongue weight. So maybe the trailer is around 5,000 pounds total, give or take. We haven't weighed the truck empty yet, so we're not exactly sure, how much to subtract from the loaded weight. But in any case, bottom line, what you see there is a U-Haul, a standard 12 by 6 foot U-Haul, enclosed. And we're going uphill in low to mid 90 degree temps. And when we did this a year ago in our 2004 Expedition with another 12-foot trailer, it was a little bit taller. It was about 7 feet tall altogether. 7 feet on the inside. No, 6 feet on the inside. Maybe 7 or 8 feet total height. This thing is about 6.5 feet total height. So it's a little bit lower profile than the one we took through here last year. And when we went up this exact same stretch of highway in our 2004 Expedition, the truck got to the point where it was about to overheat. We saw the temp needle going up, and it just was rising steadily, and eventually got to the point where the AC compressor cut out. And that's basically the truck telling you, hey, I'm at about my limit, and I kind of need to tap out. But that's a 2004. It's got maybe 250,000 miles. It's got the old 5.4 2-valve per cylinder V8. It only had maybe 260 horsepower. Can't remember the torque. Somewhere in the 300s probably. And that trailer, not necessarily the weight of it, but the profile, the aerodynamic drag, put so much stress on the engine that it just got to the point where it was almost going to overheat. This engine, on the other hand, is only a 3.5 liter V6, twin turbocharged, EcoBoost, 24 valve, double overhead cam. It's got a lot of technology. It's all aluminum, I think. The 2.7 has a CGI block that's compacted graphite iron. But this engine, I think, is all aluminum, the 3.5 EcoBoost. Correct me if I'm wrong. And it's got absolutely no problem dragging a 5,000-pound trailer up a steep incline. In 90-degree heat. And you see the temp gauge there? That's where it's been all day. That's where it is basically all the time. Oil pressure, that's where the oil pressure is all the time. The boost, you know, to be honest, the boost, most of the time with this truck, it is running on 0 boost. And then sometimes when you're going up you know, a hill of some kind, or you just want to accelerate faster than normal, yeah, it'll get into the boost. But as we've said before, you don't feel it and you don't hear it. You don't hear those turbos spooling up, and the engine makes no appreciable difference in terms of its noise level or, you know, the effort that it appears to be making. All right, we're passing 2,000 feet elevation now. And so, as a lot of people have said before, and as you probably heard, this engine puts out gobs of torque and power. It has never, we've never been in a situation with this truck, and we just hit 10,000 miles, by the way, last night. It has never been in a position where it was short on power, or even where it made us think it was working extra hard, or under any amount of stress or strain. The limits in terms of its ability to make power comfortably are so high that most people who own one of these are never going to hit them or even get near them. And that's a tremendous testament to the engineering and the development and the refinement that Ford put in with the 3.5. Now, we do have somewhat mixed feelings about it, because all we hear about in all the forums and the Facebook groups and everybody we talk to is the cam phasers, and people are talking about their cam phasers dying when they hit 30,000 miles and, you know, 50,000 miles. And to a somewhat less extent, people talk about needing to replace turbos on the 3.5. And so, is there work to be done on it? Sure. It's in its, at least its second generation. I know they redid it for sometime around the 2018 year, very thoroughly, very substantially. And I don't know how much, I don't know if they made an all new block, all new heads, but they revised it pretty thoroughly. I think it started out with around 325, 345 horsepower. And then by 2018, it was up to 375 horsepower. And for 2021, it may have hit 400 horsepower in the non-hybrid version. That's just what I thought I heard at one point. And then with the hybrid, the max horsepower combined between gas and electricity is 430. So as you see, we've gone just over 10 miles, 6.5 miles to the gallon. We're burning a lot of gas, obviously, going up a very steep incline. We've actually had 0.3 electric miles. That must have been while we were in Baker. Maybe slowing down for a stop sign or something. If you put it into tow haul mode, by the way, you're not going to have any electric miles because it will never shut off the engine while the truck is moving. It will still shut off the engine at red lights, but you're not going to have it just kill the engine when you're coasting downhill or coasting to a stop sign, that kind of thing. And so once again, you can't even tell from the noise level. Okay, it did just downshift, and then it shifted right back up. 8th gear, 9th gear, going uphill at 65 miles an hour. Temp is completely stable. We've got the adaptive cruise control and lane keeping and lane centering turned on. And as we've discussed in one or two previous videos, yes, those features still work when you've got a trailer hitched up, and they work just fine. They've got no issues controlling a trailer. We noticed yesterday after we loaded up, we were in like Otay Mesa area, Otay Mesa, and there was a little bit of wind. There was a breeze coming in off the ocean as we were heading back north up to Carlsbad for the night. And the trailer did a little bit of wobbling. Not a ton, but you could kind of see it moving around a little bit back there. And when we had adaptive, when we had the self-driving turned on, otherwise known as 360 Copilot, there's a lot of names for it. The truck was having actually a little bit of trouble with it because it was, you could feel the steering wheel doing this type of thing because the truck was trying to correct its, trying to keep itself pointed in the right direction. But it didn't seem to be able to do it, perfectly well. And there was just a little bit of, not like oscillating, but like the trailer would wobble a little bit, the steering would adjust to correct for it, and then it would wobble the other way, the steering would counter, that way. And there was just a little bit of back and forth going on with the truck and trailer. And so in terms of tuning and in terms of the development on that system, it seems like it might need a little bit of work. We always have our hands on the wheel, at least one hand on the wheel, because that's basic common sense. And what we noticed is that if we just held it a little more rigidly and didn't let it do that corrective, take that corrective action with the steering, it settled the trailer down a little bit better than the system by itself could. And so that's a bit of a lesson learned. Left to its own devices, the self-driving system will try as hard as it can to keep the vehicle and the trailer pointed in the right direction. But if you have just the right amount of crosswind, it'll set up the trailer to start to sway a little bit on you. And the system doesn't quite compensate for that properly to counteract the sway. It just tries the best it can to keep the truck pointed forward, but it almost overcompensates for the sway. We didn't feel the brakes kicking in at all. There's a trailer stability control system, software based, that can tell based on the movement, probably the yaw angle of the truck, if the trailer is starting to push it around and starting to try to get away from you. And in extreme circumstances, it'll actually activate the rear brakes, either left or right, in order to settle the trailer down. And we've had that happen in a Ford Expedition that we rented once. It was like a 2018 maybe. No, it was before they redid it. Can't remember when they redid the Expedition and made it completely new with a new frame, all aluminum body, completely new appearance, which we don't really like that much. But it was one of the last ones before that. So I think they put the EcoBoost, the V6, into the Expedition in 2015 with the existing body that had been practically unchanged since 1997, at least in terms of its outer appearance. And so we had one of those old steel-bodied EcoBoost Expeditions we were renting. We had our 16-foot cargo trailer hitched up to it, and we had a load of freight in it. It was I don't know, 7,000 or 8,000 pounds total. And the truck didn't have a problem getting it moving. There was no squat in the rear axle. But at one point, the trailer just started moving on us. And, you know, it got to where you could see it moving back and forth about 6 inches or so. 6 or 8 inches. And the trailer stability kicked in, and you could feel those rear brakes pulsing pretty aggressively. And it completely settled it down. Got it completely under control in the space of a couple of seconds. Very impressive. All right, so we're coming up to the summit here, and that's our final number, 6.2 miles to the gallon at, you know, between 65 and 75 miles an hour. No change to the temp at all. The engine temp, the air temp actually has gone down a little bit, which makes sense when you rise in altitude. We've got another long stretch of downhill and then uphill. What you see ahead of us is something called Mountain Pass. And then you cross Mountain Pass, and then you go downhill and uphill again. And on the uphill, you hit the Nevada border and the town of Primm, where 50 feet after you cross the border, you can start gambling. And then you go about another 50 miles and you get to Las Vegas. But there you have it. Again, this truck has no trouble whatsoever dragging a 5,000-pound trailer up a steep incline in complete comfort. It doesn't even sound like it's working. It doesn't even feel like it's working. We haven't had a heavier trailer hitched up to it, and we plan to sometime soon. I know certain F150s can tow 12,000 plus. The hybrid, I think, based on the weight of all the hybrid equipment that's in it, has a little bit less payload and a little bit less towing. Maybe 11,000 pounds max. I think it's around 9,500 pounds if you're doing a fifth wheel or a gooseneck. And so we will see where it goes from here. We haven't had any, again, the truck itself does not feel loose. It doesn't feel like it's getting pushed around. Other than that one episode of a little bit of trailer sway yesterday evening, it tows with complete confidence. Again, I can't accentuate enough the fact that this thing has a practically unlimited reserve of power and torque. When you need to pass somebody, when you need to pass an 18-wheeler going uphill, and you need to get into that passing lane at 55 and very quickly get it up to 75 or 80 so you can get around that 18-wheeler and then get back in the right lane, so you're not holding up traffic, that's tremendous. Or if there's an opening in traffic and you need to get into it quickly, this truck has no trouble kicking out of a 55 mile an hour cruise or whatever. You know, you get stuck behind a camper or an RV, something like that, and in order to get around it, you have to accelerate in a hurry, and this truck will do that easily. and without complaining and with no drama. And that makes it 1,000 times easier to do long trips with trailers hitched up. So uphill's no problem. We've talked about downhill. The fact that this truck does not know how to keep itself at how to keep itself under control. I'll put it like that when you're going downhill, with or without a trailer. At least at slow speeds. We were going down what's called the Ike Gauntlet in Colorado when you come out of the Eisenhower Tunnel heading west. And that's the downhill towing test, downhill and uphill, a round trip, that the TFL truck people use for trucks and heavy trailers. And they just did a comparison between the F150 hybrid, the Powerboost, and I think a Ram 1500 with the Hemi V8 and the 8-speed automatic. And on the downhill, they had to hit the brakes. They had to apply the brakes something like 10 or 11 times to keep the truck and trailer from getting away from them on the F150. And so it's not just us. Everybody has that problem with this truck. It doesn't like to slow itself down unless you get on the brakes hard, and then you jeopardize the vehicle's stability, because then you're riding the trailer brakes hard, and then there's a chance of the trailer brakes, if the trailer has brakes, locking up and coming around on you. And so you don't want to have to do that. We put it in tow haul mode, and tow haul mode doesn't really do you a lot of good in that respect. All it does is that it holds the gears a little bit longer before it upshifts. So we've got tow haul off right now. We're in 10th gear. If we were to turn it on, which you do by rotating that control knob there, the first click, it just tells you what mode it's in, which is normal. So it's saying you're in normal mode. And then you click it again, and it goes into tow haul. And so it's still got us in 10th gear, which makes sense because we're on the flat. We're only going 65, 70. But on this uphill stretch, yeah, it's going to start downshifting a little more early and aggressively than it will without tow haul mode. So it'll give you even more power when you're going uphill. But what it will not do is give you more control and stability when you're going downhill. And that's enormously frustrating. But we've talked about it, and we've already made ourselves abundantly clear about that. So our mileage, our MPGs now are up to 7.5, and that's because we've just come down about a 5-mile downhill stretch, which makes up for, like, I think we said it was 6.2 going uphill. And now that we're going uphill again, the MPGs are going to drop. Okay, well, we didn't want to make this a long video, so we'll leave it at that. But suffice it to say, towing what we've got hitched up now, which is a 12 by 6 foot enclosed U-Haul trailer, between, let's say, 4,500 and 5,000 pounds total weight. This truck is entirely confident and comfortable towing a trailer of that size up steep mountain grades at high altitudes in relatively high temperatures. We've had this truck in 100+ degree temps last week, and it had no issues. I think it was 105, 106 in Las Vegas, early middle part of last week when we were there. And we picked up this trailer there, actually, and it just didn't have an issue. One reason trucks start to run into issues, especially at high altitudes with cooling, is the fact that the air is thinner, and so you don't have that air density going through your radiator, and so there's less like air mass to take the heat out of your radiator. So even with the fan running, the air is hotter to begin with because it's the middle of the summer, the early part of the summer, and it's less dense, so it is not nearly as effective at taking heat out of that radiator, and thereby taking heat out of your engine, as compared to the air at lower altitudes, which is a lot more dense and thicker. In terms of the engine's responsiveness and breathing ability, we're at 4,000 feet now. And in a gasoline engine, yeah, it would have a lot, in a conventional engine, non-turbocharged, it would have a lot harder of a time. Because air that's hot and that has low density is obviously harder to breathe. In the sense that an engine needs a lot of air in order to make power by burning a lot of fuel. And when it can't get it, it's not going to add more fuel since it doesn't have the oxygen it needs to burn it. So it's just sitting there gasping for breath, essentially. The same way you do when you're trying to run or exercise at high altitude. You're under tremendous physical demand, but you can't get the oxygen you need. And that's the same thing that happens to your engine if it's not a turbocharged engine. But this one, since it is, again, you just don't feel the altitude at all. You have no sense that you're, at 4,000 plus feet of elevation with very hot, very thin air going through the engine. So great job to Ford in terms of their ability to the job they've done, making a truck that for the average American, truck buyer is probably never going to hit its limits in terms of its ability to get a trailer moving and keep it moving at highway speeds completely comfortably and confidently at any altitude in any weather. If they could just get it to want to slow down without having to ride the brakes all the way down the mountain, that would be even better. But we've talked about that. All right, everyone, thanks again for watching. Have a great day, and we will talk to you later. You see, this thing just loves to devour the miles. We only hit 9,000 miles a week ago Sunday, 6 days ago, and now we're up over 10,000, and we'll be closing in on 11,000 in another day or two. Very, very impressive truck. All right, thanks, everyone. We'll talk to you later.